Black Visions TV. Welcome to Black Visions TV. Today we're here with Gwenton Sloley, British author of From the Streets to Scotland Yard. How are you today?
I'm all right. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so you're originally from Jamaica. You moved here when you're 8. What was it like growing up in Jamaica?
It's a total different environment when you compare it to England. Everything there is more structured. You know what you're doing, and you just follow the rules. When I then came to England, everything then changed. But Jamaica's a total different place to here.
So why did you come to England?
It wasn't really my choice. I was young at the time when I came here. My father sent for me. I was meant to come here on a holiday, and then at the end of the holiday, my dad then decided that he was going to keep me here and try and send me to school. So it wasn't really my choice.
So what was that transition like from being in Jamaica to being somewhere completely different like London?
It was hard as a young person growing up in an environment where you could hardly understand what the people are even saying, much less the food. Everything was a whole. It was a shock. It was a shock to my system coming here, because it was like you move from somewhere where you've lived all your life to moving to a country where you hardly know anyone and you can't understand what is going on. It was a really difficult time for me.
So what was it growing up as a young black teenager in London when there's a lot of crime, there's a lot of violence? What was your perspective on that?
The crime part of it, I would say I got accustomed to the crime, because it was like I was growing up on an estate where we had different generations of people committing crime. So it was like I then fell into that. But it was more difficult for me understanding the simple things about the country more than the crime. I'll say that I'm more adjusted to the crime easier than the life in England.
So when you say adjusted to, what did you do that made you adjusted to the crime?
I had an older brother that was 2 years older than me, so when other kids my age wasn't allowed outside, I was allowed outside. So I was being exposed to things that other young people my age wasn't being allowed to see. So I was then bringing back what I had learned from my older brother and his friends to my peer group.
So what did that influence or encourage you to be like as a teenager?
I was advanced, very, very advanced compared to my peers. As I said, I saw people smoking drugs and other things from young, to the point where I had certain people offering me drugs when I was in primary school. So other kids was inside the house at that time, probably in bed, and I was outside playing outside with the elders. So, and because I had the accent as well, a lot of the elders took to me, wanted me to sing them songs and whatever else. So I was very popular amongst the older group.
So how did that transpire to going down the path of crime or committing different offences?
It all started off from little small things. You watch someone's car, you watch the bushes, make sure no one goes into the bushes. And as time went by, you then start committing little crimes with your little friends. And because I was the one that knew how to commit those crimes, immediately I became the leader of them. So now I've got my own little followers or soldiers, if you want to call them that, where I'm the boss of them. So because I've got little people looking up to me now, the older people then respected that I had my own little soldiers, which gave me respect and kudos within the area.
How did that make you feel?
It felt good. From being a stranger that came from Jamaica and little boy, little yardie and whatever else, to being actually Gwenton, the guy on the block that the elders respect, was something that I didn't want to give that up. That feeling of power and respect, it was more than money. And feeling accepted by them as well was something that it went on for years. It took me years to break out of that. It was a feeling that it was more than love, definitely more than love, because I wasn't really getting love at home. Growing up in a house where you've got a stepmom that don't want you in her house, you would rather stay outside and play outside with the older boys, and they became the family. So any chance I got to be outside, I was outside hanging out with them. So I was more outside than in.
So did you have any kind of aspirations at that age to do something other than that lifestyle?
Funnily enough, I wanted to be a fireman when I was younger. I don't know why, but I just wanted to be a fireman. I think it was London Burning on the TV or something, but I just wanted to be a fireman. I thought, yeah, being a fireman's cool, but once I grew up, that just went out the window. I just wanted to be like a gangster or whatever they called it on the street. So the fireman went out the window, and that's what I aspired to be, and I put my whole heart and soul into it, and I got to places where a lot of these young people probably could only dream of. And I'll just say I was lucky to come out alive out of certain things that I've been through and seen.
So when you say get to places, what type of places are you talking about? Because for somebody who's not accustomed to that lifestyle, they may not know what that means.
For someone that's not accustomed to that lifestyle, I'll say, like, when you hear about the craze or you watch people on the TV that run the underworld, simple, even this area that we're in at the moment, every nightclub around here belonged to me and my friends, all the way back to West End, to a lot of the strip bars in the country, the biggest strip club in the country. We went there every week to collect money. So it was a dream that only people see on the TV, and that's what I was living. And to be the youngest one amongst people in their 30s, 40s, and I'm in my teens, it was something that it was out of the movies. Definitely.
Would you say that you felt happy at that time?
I was definitely happy. I had more money than I could spend. And I remember someone saying to me, when you've got money, you don't feel hungry. And I remember going for days without eating because I had so much money. It was just that power of, if someone needed something, I could just give them the money to buy it. It was far removed from where I was coming from, where you're seeing your family struggling, to being able to provide for whoever wanted something.
So you did serve some time in prison as kind of consequence of the lifestyle that you had. What was it like being in prison in comparison to being on the streets?
Prison was a time for me to relax. I wouldn't say it's anything compared to what they show on the movies, that prison's hard. Prison wasn't hard at all. For me, prison was like being in a camp. And growing up in Jamaica, no gas, no electric, no toilet, prison was even better than that, because I had a TV, I had a toilet, and I had free food. So I was at home. A lot of people...
You make it sound like a hotel.
I'm telling you, some of the prisons that I went to, you could cook your own food. You had PlayStation in there, DVD and Sky. So a lot of people can't afford that outside. So it depends on what prison you was in. Ensuite shower and Sky TV and a mobile phone and house phone to phone your family, depending on your privileges. A lot of people don't live like that outside. So prison rehabilitated me, I wouldn't say that. What prison done for me is make me know who I was. And that's the only thing that I took out of the 3 years that I served in prison, was getting to know who the real Gwenton was and becoming one with myself.
So when you came out of prison, what choices did you make in comparison to what you did before? I
tried my best to stay out of trouble, but the temptation was high. And within 3 weeks, I started committing crime again. But one thing that I did get from prison, I had to play the system to be released, because the reports that the police and the prison service wrote about me, it was like they were trying to stop me from coming home. They said I had a split personality. I was banned from all London jails because of my gang activity. So I had to play the system by doing courses. So when I came home, I then applied those same things that I was used in prison to actually come out of prison on the streets. And I was going to college in the nights, but doing crime in the daytime. So I was still trying to leave, but it was like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And in the end, me going to college resulted in me being where I am today, because of that same counselling course that I was doing in college has then pushed me onto different doors and different paths.
So what encouraged you to do a counselling course?
Funnily enough, I only went there to get an ID. I didn't have no photo ID after coming home. I'd lost all my property, even up to my socks people had stolen. So when I came home, I had nothing. And I went to the college to try and get an ID. And when I looked around, the only course they had was a counselling course. And I remember entering the room that day, and I looked around, and I saw all the people in there were like my dad's age. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, I'm going to go for 1 week and see how it is. And that 1 week turned into 3 years, to the point where the teacher wanted to pay for me to go to university. And I was willing to go to university at that time, but then a job came up. And because that job came up, I then went to work instead of going to university. So I did try, but as I said, it was a 1 foot in, 1 foot out at that time.
So being of the age that you are now, what is one piece of advice that you would have given your younger self back then?
nothing lasts forever. And most of the people that I was friends with then, I would say to myself, you know what, by the time you're 31, you wouldn't be talking to none of them. And that's the advice that I'll give. Not everyone's real, and when it comes down to the crunch, not everyone's going to be there, if anyone. So that's the advice that I would give to myself, to know that you have to look out for you, because no one else is going to do that.
So you're a senior partner of Core Plan UK. Can you tell us a bit more about what Core Plan is and what it does?
Core Plan's an organisation that operates globally. So wherever there needs to be support or help for young people or people in the community, Core Plan has an umbrella that delivers that service and tailors it to the need of that person or the community. So we've partnered up with Choices Consortium, which is Lifeline, drugs and alcohol. We've got Open Cinema, a part of that. We've got Sheehan Housing, which is a part of that as well, and Safer Choices. So we've got a different range of people around us, so we could operate like the people like Virgin and other major people out there. But on a day-to-day, lower scale operating, which I'm involved in, we're in the schools, we're in the colleges, the churches, mosque, wherever it's needed. We're in the community. We do events that are for the community, putting back in the community and helping the community's voices get heard. So it's about understanding what people in the community need. Me, myself, I've gone through the LMP training, which is leadership mentoring training, which has been an instrumental part of my change and the whole transition, where when I decided to leave the streets, they had a mentor there for me. There was someone there to give me counselling on a week-to-week basis. So without that, I would not have been able to leave the streets, because I still had my demons, I still had that temptation. But with that whole wraparound service, I was then able to focus on what I wanted to focus on. I decided I wanted to go into writing. There was someone there that had been through vigorous training and that helped me get to that place where I could produce quality writing to be putting out a book in 2010. From there, I then had someone else support me to go to university and everything else and learn how to set up business. So it's tailored to the person's needs, and that's what we do, to the point now where I'm now a senior partner at Core Plan, supporting other young people and other member of staff coming up. So it's all about you help someone else get to that place where they could support someone. So yeah, that's basically it.
So you wrote your book From the Streets to the Scotland Yard in 2010. Yeah. Why did you write the book?
Initially, I wrote the book for my mother that passed in 2001. And on my mother's deathbed, I found out a lot of, you could call it secrets, but to me, I call them surprises. Because if my mother wasn't dying, I probably would never have found out about it. My dad never spoke about it. None of my family spoke about it. It was like a secret that everyone kept from me. Oh, don't let the young boy find out. So my whole life, I went along with a big lie. So everyone, it was like being in a movie where everyone else knows the truth apart from you. And when my mum was on her deathbed, I then found out that my sister didn't have the same dad as me. My sister was also my aunt. So it was very confusing, because I then had to find out how comes my aunties are calling my sister sister, but they're still my aunties, until someone sat me down and said, yeah, your granddad's your sister's dad. So I then had to come to terms to understand, how does that work? Because that means that he must have had a baby with my mum. And then that was the first time I had come up close and personal with the whole incest thing. And another surprise then came out the bag, where when I was in prison, the people that was in prison, like for sex offenders, would walk underneath the prison. And I remember there was a guy in there that, although he was in there for sex offences, would act hard, because in the area that he was considered a gangster. When I turned up at my grand's house, the guy turned out to be my uncle. So it was like, wait a minute, my uncle's in this as well. That guy that I saw in prison was my uncle. And then slowly I started finding out other things about my family and everything else. And it was like an electric shock. I remember one day I sat there and I remembered that, wait a minute, I had also been sexually abused or attempted to as well. And I thought, you know what, it's
When you say remembered, was it something that you blocked out before, or was it something that you just didn't want to talk about?
I would blocked out seems too subtle for that. I totally erased it from my memory to the point where I thought I was going mad. Just to even think that, wait a minute, my sister tried to sexually abuse me when we were younger in Jamaica. Until one day she came up to me and said to me, I'm sorry. And the only thing you could be sorry for was that. So it all came back and I thought, wait a minute. So this really did happen. And then when you're looking at the whole backdrop of the family and seeing that this is a practice that the family actually supports, I thought to myself, so my sister must also have thought at the time that this kind of practice is okay. And until later on, I found out that a lot of family members have actually sexually abused my sister as well. So it was a confusing time for me because it then turned from being angry with my sister to actually feeling sorry for her, because you're thinking, wait a minute, is it because you've been sexually abused by all these people, you're feeling suicidal because you don't know who your dad is and everything else? Why you then try to inflict that onto me? Because you thought that, wait a minute, my little brother, everyone loves him and he's the happy kid, I'm going to inflict some of my pain on him. So immediately it then turned from me being angry to my sister to actually feeling sorry for her. Because although she's 10 years my senior, I still feel like I'm the older brother, because I'm the one that is able to cope with mum's death, being abused and everything else. When I'm seeing my sister constantly trying to commit suicide, or she'll go and seek counselling and come out worse than when she went in. So I then decided, you know what, the only way this is going to stop is if I speak out about it. And I remember calling up one of my aunts one day and I said, no, what, I'm calling a meeting with the family, because there's a lot of people here that are suffering things that no one don't want to talk about it. And if I have to be the bad guy at the family, I'm ready for that. And I remember my gran phoning me up one day and saying to me, I'm trying to kill her. So I said to her, well, my mum's dead. I didn't see anyone crying. So we're going to have this meeting and we're going to talk about it. And having that conversation didn't really change anything, because it was like I was the bad guy, because they were saying to me, leave the past alone. Why are you making people on the outside know what we've gone through? Keep
Do you
it.
think it was a sense of shame and embarrassment? Because it's not something that a lot of black people talk about. It's quite a taboo subject. So do you feel like you opened a can of worms in that situation?
It's beyond the can of worms. It's bigger than that. This subject's bigger than all of us. Because when you look at it, even mainstream media, no one wants to touch it. Because I don't know whether it gives off a different sort of energy or something, but it's just a subject that nobody really wants to talk about. When they say, you know what, I've been abused, as a man, they look at you like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And you're thinking, it shouldn't be whoa, whoa, whoa. It should be equal. If a man and a woman is being sexually abused, everyone could be a victim of it. And that's why I decided that, you know what, I'm going to put it in print. And I didn't know that I was going to get the satisfaction and the release. And when I say release, I use the word release of my own demons, of what I had been suffering with for years. It had been released the minute I pressed print on that book.
Was it a form of therapy for you?
Definitely. Because once I released that book into the universe, I felt free for the first time in 25 years, where I weren't the angry person again. Because growing up, I didn't know why I was so angry. I was a very, very angry person, to the point where the anger became cold, where I was emotionless, where I would do things without feeling any emotions towards it. And only when I wrote the book and put it out, I then understood, you know what, this must have been the underlying trauma that was eating away at me without me knowing. Because come on, your sister trying to sexually abuse you, but you still have to love that person at the same time. That's something that no one could say to you, this is how you deal with it. When my dad initially found out, he was shocked, because he's thinking, wait a minute, when did this happen? When we was at work? My mum went to her grave without even finding out. Probably that would have killed her. So all of them little things you have to think about is what the book has been able to help me do, which I give thanks for. I've had a lot of people around me since the book's been out say to me, you know what, Gwenton, thanks for that. To the point where it's now got to a stage where I'm thinking, who hasn't been abused? Because it feels like everybody around me has had some sort of sexual abuse to the point where it's becoming dangerous. It's like a disease. And that's the only way I could describe it. It's like a disease. Some people, they don't even have to say to you no more, me too. I could just see it from the way that they say to me, you know what, Gwen, I read the book, thanks for that, or that was powerful. You could just look in their eyes and know, you know what, they're not ready to talk about it, but they've been abused as well. So it's been a really, really long journey. And I just give thanks for the support. And it comes back down to the team that had around me at the time. Without them, I wouldn't have been able to write that book because it took me to a place where I wasn't ready to go. But with that whole support every week and people behind me saying, nah, don't worry, we got you. Do what you have to do, whatever support you need, we'll help you with that. So, yeah, the support was good.
Since the release of your book, what have the relationships been like with your family members?
From both sides of my family, even my father's side of the family that had nothing to do with this, they have started to act a bit funny in the sense of they're a bit worried that I'm going to say something about them because they're thinking, if you could go to that extreme and talk about your mum's side of the family, what are you going to say about us? But it's more so my mother's side of the family that was actually practicing, which I would call the nastiness or the dark secret. Half of them have stopped speaking to me completely because they have this feeling that I'm trying to kill my gran. Because I wrote a line in the book where I'm saying, as a parent, you should know what's happening in your house. And that was directed to my gran. And they've took that as I'm blaming my gran for my granddad sexually abusing my mum. And because of the result of that, half of the family have just decided that I'm the worst guy in the world. So all the pictures in the house with me on there are down. All the invitations to family parties, no one tells me. If I invite them places, the ones that are not involved in this, they're not allowed to come unless they check in first.
So how does that make you feel?
A part of me feel relieved to know that I've done the right thing, but at the same time, you still want that connection with your family. But to be honest, if it means me never speaking to them again because they're refusing to discontinue their practicing, then I could do without them because you know what you're doing is not right and I can't be a part of that. So if I have to lose my family over that, that's something that I'm willing to do.
You said earlier about they weren't secrets, they were surprises. What does that mean?
The reason why I call them surprises because it wasn't a secret because everyone else apart from me knew what was going on. Down to my little cousins, because when I first met back up with the family, it was a confusing time for me because my little cousins was calling my sister auntie and I'm thinking, what's going on? So why am I not your uncle as well then? Until I found out that I was the only one that didn't know. So it was that whole thing of it's a secret, but only for him. Everyone else in the family knows, but just keep it away from him because I didn't grow with my mum's side of the family. Although I was in England, I didn't know who they were. I didn't know where they live. I've never met them before in my life. And probably if my mum didn't come to England and was dying, none of them would have came to find me. They knew I was here, but I was never a part of that family. So probably I think that's what gave me that also extra power from within to say, you know what, I'm not really losing anything. I didn't really grow with you. So I didn't know you when I was younger. You didn't come find me when I was starving. So I'm not really going to lose anything if you start talking to me now. So that's what kind of makes me different to everyone else, where it was like a new relationship. And sometimes you can't pretend to love people you don't know.
So what has the relationship been like between you and your sister now?
My sister is not as outspoken as I am. She will still see my gran and cry. She will still see some of my aunties and allow them to take advantage of her. With me, I'm not going to stand for that at all. But between the two of us, the bond has become tight. At the end of the day, it's my sister. I love her and I forgive her for what she's done. I still say she should have known better at 10 years old. And I'm 5, you're now 15. At 15 years old, you should know better. You're 10 years older than me. There's no way at 15 you could say you didn't know what you was doing. And no matter whether or not you was allowed out the house to go and experiment with other people, you shouldn't have tried that on me, because at 15 I wouldn't have done that to my younger sibling. So that's the only point that I'll say. She should have known better, but I forgive her, because until I forgave her, I'm walking around angry, and that was eating away at me every day. So it's all about releasing that hatred towards my sister and actually, you know what, I'm going to help you in your journey as well, because I can see you're not as strong as me. And even on the book launch, I gave her 5 minutes to speak, because I'm looking at that as restorative justice within the house. And a lot of people don't understand the power of that when you're looking and people are looking at me like, wait a minute, ain't that your same sister that... And you could see it in their face, because they're like, oh my God, that's her. Because a lot of people didn't know who she was. And when she said, yeah, I'm his brother, I'm his sister, that's my little brother, blah, blah, blah. A lot of people, the room went silent. It was like a Western. When someone walks into the bar and the music stops, it was like that. And I had to say to them after, at the end of the day, it's my sister. You understand? She knows what she done was wrong. But if this is a part of her healing, let her have her 5 minutes to see, and for people to see that I'm not angry. And a lot of people need to release that within themselves and learn how to forgive. Until you learn how to forgive, you're going to actually be killing yourself slowly within. It's like being sexually abused is like being dead but being alive. And when I say that, it's like your soul within is dead, it's damaged, you're dying slowly inside, because you're just walking around with this anger bottled up within you, which you can't tell your husband, oh yeah, I've been sexually abused. You can't tell your mom, you can't tell your dad. So it's just your brain is just eating away at the rest of your soul. So until you release that and actually start living in the world of forgiveness, you're walking around in pain. So for me, I forgive my sister, I forgive my gran. I still ring my gran on Mother's Day and tell her Happy Mother's Day. Hopefully that one day she'll come around and see what she done's wrong. And she talks to me normally. No one would believe it. I rang her Mother's Day and she was like, oh, you all right, son? How you doing? Because she now thinks that she's now my mum, because my mum's gone. And she will talk to me like nothing's happened, but I'm still not allowed to her house. But it's what it is, because obviously other family members go around the house that don't agree with me speaking out on the subject. But deep down, my gran must feel a sense of relief that I actually forgive her for what she's done. So all I could do is just work on it and hope that with time there becomes change.
So you've got 3 daughters and 1 son. What type of conversations do you have because of the experiences that you've had?
I, from young, spoke to all my kids about this. They've read the book.
What ages are they?
My daughter's 11, my other daughter's 8, and my son's 7, and my youngest daughter's 3. And even from the 3-year-old, she knows. Strangers come to the house, she's going to put her leggings on. And she's free and she knows. You've got just your underwear on, don't be jumping up on daddy's lap. I don't care if I'm your dad, don't be doing that. A lot of people think, oh yeah, you're going over the top. But to me, I'd rather be safe than sorry, because once that happens, there's nothing that you could do to remove that memory from that young person's mind. So it's all about prevention better than trying to deal with it after.
Do you think you've built an environment where they feel comfortable to come and talk to you if they were in that situation?
Definitely. My youngest daughter knows if something happens, even if it's me, and we've got this rule in the house where, and I think a lot of parents need to actually take this on board as well. If you've done something to a young person, whether it's your child or whatever, they should be able to come and say, you know what, Dad, I don't like what you done. What you done made me feel like this. And that's what I teach all my kids. Whether you come to me or you go to your mum or you tell someone else, whether it's granddad, grandma, whoever, that daddy done this to me and I didn't like it. Or even if something happens at school, you come home straight away if you don't feel comfortable telling the teachers and say, you know what, this is how this made me feel and I felt sad. And that's the only way that a young person will feel like, you know what, I could actually have that conversation without you telling me that I'm lying. And the reason why I emphasize on that, the worst thing you could do to a young person, not to say that you might not find a young person lying about things, but if a young person comes to you and says something like they've been touched or abused, actually have that conversation with them, because by saying that you're lying, it's just as bad as it happening to them in the first place. So have that conversation, make them feel comfortable, and know that you're there to support them. That's very important, that whole support.
So someone who may be watching this interview may be currently going through abuse or in that kind of situation. What services do you know that are available, or what advice could you offer to them?
They could come through to Core Plan UK. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on all social network sites, and we will try and signpost them. As I said, it's not one hat fits everyone, so you'll have to find out what that person's going through to tailor something towards their specific needs. I'm not going to say to someone, oh yeah, you've been abused, so there's a generic lifesaver, because there isn't. And a lot of people haven't reported their abuse that's happened to them, because I haven't. So when we're looking at the statistics and thinking, oh yeah, 1 out of 6 men's been abused, there's probably more than that. So it's all about coming together so we could draw up some real statistics and make sure that the government and the people that do provide the services for men that are out there that's been abused. So that's what we're trying to do at the moment. So it's all about, let's come together and put a stop to this now.
So where can people find you, and where can they purchase your book?
You could find me at GwentonSloley.com or on Twitter, or you could contact me on Gwenton Sloley at Facebook, or I'm on the Core Plan website, which is coreplan.co.uk. You could also purchase the book from the Core Plan website, where it's available on Amazon, and it's also available on Kindle, and it will be soon available in all major bookstores across the country.
Well, thank you for talking to us. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and it's opened my eyes to a lot of different topics that I didn't know about personally, and I think a lot of our viewers may not have been able to, find information about or speak about within their community. And it's good that you've offered us services such as Core Plan, where people can go and express these views if they have any of them.
And thanks for your support.
Thank you for watching. Black Visions TV.